All right, friends, welcome back to the Blessed Family Podcast. As always, it's great to be back with you. It is fall in Texas, and the highs are still close to 90. Really excited about that cold weather. It'll be coming soon. If I look, for those of you who are watching this, which I prefer you just to listen to it, but if I look kind of tired, kind of groggy, it's because I am. It's been a great year. Definitely probably our busiest year, just traveling. Lots of good ministry. I'm not complaining. I'm just making an excuse for my appearance, which I do often. So far, it seems to fool my wife. All right, friends. Well, we've got a great episode for you today. We're talking about books. You guys know I love to talk about books. I'll try to remember to put this book list in the description. Pretty scattered brain, so sometimes I forget about that. But today is titled, What Books to Read If You Don't Read Books? Or another title could be, If You Only Read 10 Books in Your Life, Which Books Should You Read? Now, of course, the Bible is a given, and I go back and forth on putting the Bible on list. I think it's good to have the Bible on a list, but yet also the Bible stands apart from all books. I mean, it is the Word of God. But just so you know, I don't have the Bible on this list because that's a given. If there's only one book you ever read, let it be the Bible. Okay? Said. But like I said, this is for someone. Oh, hey, quick update, by the way. It is not too late. It's almost too late, but not quite, to sign up for our Be Sanctified conference, November 13th through 17th in Grapeland, Texas. You go to jareddodd.com, and if you write me a sweet email saying, please let us squeeze in, maybe I'll even give you a deal on your registration. Just for fun. Might get in trouble for that, but it's okay because we can do that. All right, friends. So how to make this list. Okay, so you want a little bit of everything. So I put some history, some literature, some theology, some family material on here. The goal is, in my mind, to help someone dig into the roots, just like with all book lists. You want to dig into the root of Christianity, of Christendom. As an American, for us, it needs to involve our history. And you know, if you're a different nationality, just insert your own, right? It's very important that we understand our past as not only God's people, but as, you know, American or French or whatever it might be. Now, I did not choose huge books because this is for someone who doesn't like to read. So I'm not going to do Winston Churchill's 4 volumes on the history of the English-speaking people, even though that's great. I'm not going to do Les Miserables, even though, as you guys know, it's one of my favorites. We're going to do shorter books, so it's not quite as intimidating. So this is a list for someone who just isn't a reader, but who wants to give it a shot, okay? Typically, this is for men, but there's also women out there who have a hard time just getting excited about reading. And usually, to be fair, that's because they haven't found good books. I mean, textbooks are not exciting. Textbooks, you know, I have the privilege of traveling around the nation, meeting lots of wonderful people, sons and daughters, and none of them ever say, Mr. Dodd, let me show you my textbooks. These just get me so fired up. So growing up like I did in just your typical public school realm, it's pretty hard to find books in that are exciting. But if you find, anyone can love to read if they find the right book. Okay, so 1 through 10, here we go. Now this first one might sound silly, but I think this is where you have to start with anyone who wants to get into reading. This is where I would start with anyone who wants to understand the purpose of books, the purpose of stories, and that is with Aesop's fables. We just read them this morning in our devotions. Today is the 4th of November, so we read Proverbs chapter 4, and then we went on to read a few of Aesop's fables. And we did the story of the oak and the reeds, which teaches that it's better to bend and to submit sometimes than to be destroyed. It's, you know, better to humble yourself than to be proud. And the reason why I always start with Aesop's fables is obviously they're short and sweet. You know, you just need an attention span of 3 minutes. But they teach you, they are really in many ways the epitome of character and life skills and reality attached with stories. So you read The Tortoise and the Hare, it's not about, I mean, the point isn't about racing. The point isn't about turtles and rabbits. The purpose is about slow and steady wins the race, about enduring, about persevering. And people get that. Like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Someone who doesn't like to read, they read that and they're going to get it. They're going to be like, oh, I see. And so it can hopefully help them attach stories with blessing, stories with transformation of character and life. So Aesop's Fables, second to the Bible, is, for me, the MVP. I love Aesop's Fables. Dates back to 600 BC. All right, next, number 2, we have Trial and Triumph by Richard Hannula. It's a, fairly thick book. It's not like a thin book, and yet each chapter takes about 5 minutes. It's, I think, 40, 45 stories of people. And it starts with, oh man, I'm really out of it today. It starts with, I can't think of his name, but he was a first century martyr. And it goes all the way through. It goes all the way through, and it covers the stories of Augustine, of Martin Luther, of the great missionaries, the great preachers like Spurgeon, of course. It goes, and it ends up with C.S. Lewis. That's going to drive myself crazy. Who was that guy? His name is very peculiar. Huh. You guys know who I'm talking about. All right, so Trial and Triumph, would really encourage that book. It's a great book. It makes a great gift. And like I said, you go through, and people like stories. People like to learn about other people. And so that's a lot of fun. All right, number 3, an abridged version of a classic. Now, there's some of you, Polycarp. I knew if I went on, it would come to me. Thank you, Lord. My brain still works. The book Trial and Triumph begins with Polycarp, and it goes through. It's funny, the whole time I was like, fish. His name is something with fish. Carp. Sorry, Polycarp, but that's how it popped in my mind. Okay, number 3, an abridged version of a classic such as the Odyssey, Frankenstein, Robinson Crusoe. Now, and this is literature, so we not only want to learn stories, we not only want to learn history, but we want just good classical literature in our library if you only got 10 books. Now, some people out there will crucify me for even suggesting that you read something abridged. Sorry, I love classics, and there's some classics that I want my children to read the entire thing. But many of them, I'm fine with them just reading an abridged. And, maybe it's a warm-up. You read the abridged, you like it, so then you go on. For instance, Frankenstein, I really like Frankenstein. It's a fascinating book. And yet, maybe you can start with the abridged. So, pick some good literature. Robinson Crusoe, amazing story. Story of redemption, if you read the whole thing. The Odyssey. The Iliad. Odyssey, though, is easier, honestly. What's some other good ones? Swiss Family Robinson. Any Dickens book, Tale of Two Cities, right? Oliver Twist. Okay, so that is number 3. Number 4, and this is assuming this book list is for a man, although this would be a great book for a woman to read who wants to better understand the role of her husband and support him. Let's do a family book that is good. So we're looking for a book on family that's good, that's short and sweet. Okay, so I have nominated Man of the House by CR Wiley. Great book, but short. Just gets to it. Nothing wrong with family books that are really thick, but man, if you're like me, I am a reader, but I'm not the best reader because I didn't start really becoming a reader until I was an adult. I could read, but as far as loving books and wanting to read books, and so I still prefer short and sweet. I love Eric Metaxas. My son is reading through his book Luther right now. I'm reading through Bonhoeffer with the family. By the way, Bonhoeffer movie coming out November 22nd. Check it out. The word on the street is, there's still, and I get it. No one's perfect except Christ, but there's still people who think that, well, they're very few, who take issue with Bonhoeffer. I don't get it. Please, read Eric Metaxas' book. This isn't about this book list. This is just a random tangent. I'm just rambling. But read Eric Metaxas' book on Bonhoeffer. See the film. He was an amazing man. Amazing man. It doesn't mean you're not saved if you don't like Bonhoeffer. But goodness gracious, he had a backbone stronger than most Christians today, likely including myself. All right, so where are we at? Okay, so we've got Aesop's Fables, Trial and Triumph, a classic such as Robinson Crusoe, Abridged. We've got CR Wiley's Man of the House. All right, number 5. Let's keep going. Let's do a biography. Biographies are good, right? Really, a whole book dedicated to someone's story. And even though I would love for you to read the Eric Metaxas' book I just mentioned, Luther and Bonhoeffer, even though I would love for you to read S.C. or C.S. I think it's S.C. Gwine's book, The Rebel Yell, The Life Redemption of Stonewall Jackson, which is like 1,000 pages. I would love for you to read that. The audiobook's good. Maybe you need to do audiobooks. Hey, that's something I didn't think about. If you aren't a reader and you want to get into reading, maybe start with audiobooks and just edge your way into it. But why don't we start with one of the Heroes Then and Now books by YWAM? They're brown books, and I would recommend Gladys Aleward. I would recommend Richard Wurbrandt. I would recommend C.S. Lewis. They're all good. They're all good, but especially Gladys Aleward and Richard Wurbrandt, man, those just capture your attention. They are suspenseful. Gladys's story is insane. It is crazy. It would make a great movie, which I've heard, we still haven't watched it, but back in the 50s or 60s, they came out with a film about her, black and white movie. But they need a modern movie of Gladys Aleward, done by real Christians that aren't going to feminize it. All right. Let's move on. Number 6. Okay, let's do, this would be history/theology. Let's get a perspective of what our forefathers thought. And let's do a confession, okay? A confession. So this would be maybe the Heildeburg, published in the 1500s, which was the Confession of Comfort for Protestants who were going through hardship, right, in the late 16th century. Maybe it's the Westminster. Maybe it's the London Baptist, 1689. But man, you can read through one of these, and I mean, an hour is plenty of time to really just get a taste of it. Maybe you look at the table of contents and look at some of the topics, and you go through, and maybe you have your Bible next to you, because all these, of course, have all these markers sourcing the Bible verses that they got these confessions from, but short and sweet, and gives you a good idea of what our forefathers thought about theology, what they thought about the Bible. You could also get maybe... you can order this on Amazon for maybe $6. It's a little blue book. Get that edition. It's the best one, in my opinion. But get the New England Primer and read through how children used to be educated. And in that book, you will find catechisms, confessions, such as the ones I've mentioned. All right, number 7. Let's do a good history book, just a book that is good history. And let's do Albert Marrin, one of my favorite authors of history. And let's start with either Stalin or Hitler. Now, these are not short little books, but neither are they huge Eric Metaxas-like books. Albert Marrin's books are reasonable, but there's something about the way he writes his stories of history, and they really are captivating and they're fascinating. Most people today, friends, the vast majority of people in this world, especially America, well, I don't know if I can say especially America, but let's just narrow it down to us. The vast majority of Americans have really no idea what the consequences were of Stalin especially, and also Hitler, how they came to power, what was their guiding light, what was their quote-unquote Bible. It wasn't the Christian Bible. It was Marx. It was Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto. And what were the consequences of their ideas? What was the consequences of Darwinian evolutionism mixed with Marxism? What did that do to Europe? What did that do to Russia? Oh, in the century that most of us listening were born in. Very insightful. Check it out. Things that happened in the lifetime of my father, who is still living 80. Let's see, Daddy is 81, I think. Yeah, 81. All right, we've got 2 left, but I've cheated because I've put 2 on each of these last 2, giving you some options. Okay, let's do the second best-selling book of all time. Now, this is a long book. It's over 100,000 words, which is not long. It's not 500,000 words like Les Mis, but it's long for someone who's not a reader. But you could do an abridged version. Let's do Pilgrim's Progress. Second best-selling book of all time. Just saw a documentary called The Puritans, where a preacher recommended reading through that book once a year, which my family doesn't do, but I want to do. But let's do Pilgrim's Progress. You can do an abridged version. Or, if you want to do just a great work of theology, how about Willing to Believe by R.C. Sproul? Now, that's probably the most formidable book on this list, the most intimidating book. But R.C. goes through it historically with stories, starting with, I think he starts with Pelagius and Augustine. But it's a really good book, okay? And lastly, let's top it off. You knew it was coming. Let's just do a great 20th century work of literature. I've got 2 options for you. Let's do The Hobbit or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. 2 amazing books, but children's books. And that's not an insult like saying I'm thinking that you're a child, but every adult, if they have not read The Hobbit or The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, please flip a coin, pick one, or maybe pick both and read them. They are great. They are wonderful. You will be blessed. They are great books. Great books. Okay, so Aesop's Fables, Trial and Triumph, an abridged version of a classic, Man of the House by CR Wiley, a biography by YWAM Publishers, Heroes Then and Now series, the Brown books, maybe Gladys Aleward, maybe Richard Wurbrandt, a confession, work of theology such as the Heidelberg, Westminster, London Baptist, 1689, which is really just copying the Westminster and changing the sacraments. Anyways, a work of history by Albert Marrin, maybe Stalin, maybe Hitler. I skipped one. I missed one. I'm glad I went back through this. That would have been really embarrassing. Number 8. Completely missed this in my notes. Let's do just understanding the Bible better, and let's read the Action Bible. The Action Bible is about, an 800-page comic book of the Bible. And once again, if you think that's only for children, my wife read it. This was years ago now when we first got it. She read it, and she wept. She cried because it just gave her an understanding of the Bible that she did not have before. The Bible's a story from cover to cover, and this will give you, in my strong opinion, most Christians would have a better understanding of the Bible, and maybe this goes to how really illiterate we are with our own book, but they'll have a better grasp of the story of the Bible, especially when it gets into the kings and the prophets and all those things where we kind of, between the promised land, but, between Joshua to Christ and then the exile and the return and, Ezra, Nehemiah, those are so muddled sometimes, and we don't know where goes what. Read the Action Bible. We also have the epic story, but read the Action Bible. And then number 9, we add Pilgrim's Progress or Willing to Believe, and then last of all, The Hobbit, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Friends, I hope this list was helpful. Once again, want to encourage you. Let's read good books. Husbands, wives, if you have a spouse or a son and daughter who just has a hard time reading, the goal is to find the right book. Okay, the goal is to find the right book. I, growing up, couldn't stand reading until I got a hold of Tolkien, and I just inhaled The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and would read for hours. Whereas before, I couldn't read for 5 minutes because the books I was reading were so, in my mind, boring. Get an abridged version of Beowulf. Just find some good books. All right, love you guys. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.